In recent weeks, a contentious statement by former President Donald Trump has ignited a fervent debate about the future of American democracy. During a recent discussion, Congressman Daniel Goldman detailed the implications of Trump's assertion that he might seek a third term. A notion that, while dismissed by some as mere rhetoric, signals deeper, more alarming currents within the current administration. This report examines the layered narrative behind these remarks, placing them within the broader context of a series of controversial policies and actions that have defined the Trump era. The political climate in Washington has been fraught with instability and uncertainty. And over the past few days, the discourse has been dominated by Trump's recent comments, which suggest that he might attempt to remain in power beyond the constitutional limits. Critics, including numerous Republican senators, have sought to downplay the gravity of these statements by claiming they were made in jest. However, Congressman Goldman underscored that during a recent interview with Kristen Welker, Trump emphatically stated, "I'm not joking," thereby intensifying the concerns about his long-term intentions. This particular revelation has been widely interpreted as a dual strategy by Trump, a deliberate distraction from the pressing issues at hand, and a component of a broader effort to dismantle democratic safeguards. At a time when the administration is grappling with severe challenges ranging from a volatile stock market and escalating trade wars to the audacious proposal of annexing Greenland and the firing of thousands of federal employees, the potential pursuit of a third term appears to be yet another maneuver designed to reconfigure the balance of power in his favor. Congressman Goldman elaborated on how the third-term comment fits within a pattern of behavior that has been evident since the early days of the Trump administration. He argued that this is not an isolated incident, but rather part of a methodical effort aimed at undermining the democratic framework of the nation. For a calculated distraction, he noted, but it is also emblematic of a broader scheme to consolidate power and subvert the checks and balances that our Constitution enshrines. Central to this controversy is the 22nd Amendment, which explicitly limits presidential terms. What terms? In response to these alarming developments, a resolution has been introduced in Congress to reaffirm the unambiguous language of this amendment. Despite the gravity of the situation, many Republican lawmakers have refrained from publicly endorsing this resolution. Congressman Goldman pointed out that prominent figures such as Mike Johnson have not taken decisive action, declining even to bring the resolution up for a vote, thus highlighting a broader reluctance among Republicans to confront what appears to be an overt power grab by Trump. This reluctance to defend constitutional principles is part of a wider narrative. The administration has, over time, engaged in a series of actions that have collectively chipped away at the pillars of American democracy. From the pardoning of individuals involved in the January 6th insurrection to the dismissal of inspectors general, Department of Justice prosecutors, and law enforcement officials. The actions taken have raised serious concerns about the erosion of accountability and transparency within the government. These moves are not merely administrative adjustments. They represent a systematic effort to weaken the institutions designed to serve as a check on executive power. Furthermore, the discussion surrounding Trump's third-term ambition cannot be isolated from the administration's broader attempts to subvert judicial independence. Efforts are underway to strip district court judges of their authority to issue nationwide injunctions, a critical mechanism for maintaining legal oversight over executive actions. The proposed legislative changes, which require each individual citizen to independently file a lawsuit in order to contest unconstitutional acts, are widely regarded as an impractical and intimidating tactic aimed at undermining the judiciary. Such measures, if implemented, could lead to a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of the executive branch. The implications of these actions extend beyond the immediate political crisis. The unitary executive theory, which posits that an elected president has the authority to determine the interpretation of the law, is being invoked by Trump's supporters to justify the dismantling of established legal precedents. Yet, this perspective dangerously challenges the fundamental principle that the judiciary is the final arbiter of constitutional interpretation. a tenet that has been solidified through landmark cases such as Marbury v. Madison. The willingness of some members of Congress and segments of the judiciary to entertain such arguments poses a profound threat to the balance of power that underpins American governance. The strategic narrative being constructed by Trump and his allies is multifaceted and sad. On one hand, the threat of a third term is seen as a distraction, a calculated diversion from other, more damaging policies that have directly affected the lives of ordinary Americans. As Congressman Goldman highlighted, while critics are busy debating the constitutional technicalities, the administration continues to enact policies that have resulted in record low stock market levels, increased unemployment, and the dismantling of essential government programs. These include significant cuts to Medicaid, food stamps, and the operational capabilities of the Social Security Administration. On the other hand, this rhetoric serves a more insidious purpose. By normalizing the idea of a president overstepping constitutional boundaries, Trump is paving the way for a gradual erosion of the democratic norms that have long been a cornerstone of the American political system. The fear is that if such behavior is not openly challenged now, it will set a precedent that could lead to a future where the executive branch is effectively unaccountable, a scenario that mirrors autocratic regimes where the leader holds unchecked power. This investigation also reveals how partisan considerations have further complicated the debate. Some Republican lawmakers have embraced the notion that, because Trump was elected on a particular mandate, he should be afforded a wide latitude in interpreting the law. This perspective not only undermines the judiciary's role, but also places the entire electoral process at risk. If the executive branch is allowed to define the law unilaterally, the very foundation of representative democracy is compromised. It is no longer a question of legal technicalities, but rather a question of whether the electorate can continue to hold its government accountable. In one illustrative example, Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee proposed a resolution endorsing Trump's potential third-term bid. However, rather than outright endorsing a deviation from constitutional norms, his proposal included an amendment acknowledging that any such term would require a formal change to the Constitution. This admission underscores the reality that, regardless of political rhetoric, any attempt to extend presidential power beyond what is constitutionally permissible must confront significant legal and procedural hurdles. Moreover, the actions targeting the judiciary are particularly troubling. Recent efforts to restrict the ability of district court judges to issue injunctions reflect a broader attempt to neutralize one of the key checks on executive overreach. By reducing judicial power, Trump and his supporters aim to establish a precedent where court rulings are rendered moot, thus effectively transferring the power to interpret the law from an independent judiciary to a politicized executive. Congressman Goldman remarked on this development, noting that if the executive branch can ignore judicial orders by virtue of its electoral mandate, then the very concept of judicial review becomes meaningless. This investigative report makes it clear that the rhetoric surrounding a potential third term is not merely a distraction. It is an integral part of a systematic strategy to reshape American governance. The normalization of such ideas is deeply concerning, as it signals a willingness to compromise the constitutional principles that have safeguarded American democracy for over 2 centuries. The risks are not confined to the political arena. They have tangible implications for the everyday lives of citizens, from economic stability to access to essential services. In conclusion, the unfolding controversy over Trump's third-term ambitions must be viewed as a microcosm of a broader assault on democratic institutions. The proposed maneuvers, whether in the form of legislative resolutions, judicial restrictions, or appeals to a unitary executive theory, collectively signal a dangerous trend towards the concentration of power in the hands of the executive. As this investigation has shown, the stakes are exceptionally high. Upholding the 22nd Amendment and ensuring the independence of the judiciary are not merely abstract legal principles. They are the very foundations upon which American democracy rests. The issues at hand demand a measured, fact-based response that goes beyond partisan rhetoric. Yes, while some may argue that these developments are nothing more than distractions, the reality is that they are symptomatic of a broader, deliberate strategy to undermine the checks and balances enshrined in the Constitution. It is incumbent upon all branches of government, and indeed the public at large, to remain vigilant in defending these fundamental safeguards. Failure to do so could very well lead to a future in which the rule of law is supplanted by the whims of an unchecked executive. A scenario that would have far-reaching consequences for the nation and its democratic legacy. The dialogue initiated by voices such as Congressman Goldman's is essential to fostering an informed public debate on these critical issues. By examining the evidence and understanding the broader implications of these actions, we can better appreciate the urgent need for a robust defense of our constitutional norms. The time to act is now, before the normalization of these dangerous ideas irreversibly alters the course of American democracy.